Welcome to the Teaching Autism and Special Education Community Podcast. Hi, I'm Nikki, a passionate special educator, autism advocate, resource creator with over a decade of experience, and you may know me as the face behind Teaching Autism. This podcast is your go-to place for practical tips, hands-on strategies, and inspiring and funny stories to support special educators all around the world, whether it's building independence, creating engaging lessons, or finding that elusive work-life balance. I'm here to help you thrive inside and outside of the classroom. Let's dive into today's episode and make a difference together. Hey teacher friends, and welcome back to the Teaching Autism podcast. Today's episode is one that I think every educator needs to hear, whether you teach in a special ed classroom or general education, because when we talk about behaviour, we often focus on rewards, consequences, visuals, or strategies. But sometimes the biggest trigger for behaviour isn't what we're doing, it's what's happening around the student. And we're talking about noise, light, and movement, and how the environment shapes behaviour. So you're going to learn what overstimulation actually does to the brain, how to spot the signs of sensory overload, and how to audit your classroom to make it more sensory safe for every learner. So grab your hot drink of choice and let's make your classroom a calmer, more comfortable place to learn. So here's the truth. Students don't react to the lesson plan. They react to the environment. Our classrooms are full of sensory input. We stop noticing because we're used to it. The hum of the lights, the chatter in the hallway, the constant movement, the ticking clock, even perfume or cleaning spray. But for our neurodivergent students, those small things can actually build up like background static until their nervous system says, I'm done. And what looks like challenging behaviour then might actually be a sensory system saying, I cannot take one more sound, light, or movement right now. Behaviour is communication, and sometimes it's the environment that's speaking the loudest. So what does overstimulation do to the brain? Let's get a bit sciencey for a second. Our sensory system takes in information from the world, sight, sound, textures, smells, movement, and sends it to the brain to process. But for some students, that system works on high alert. So instead of filtering out background noise or dimming bright lights automatically, their brains take everything in at once. So it's like trying to read a book while 5 radios play in the background. One loud, one soft, one staticky, one singing Baby Shark, and one's randomly turning off and on. Eventually, you would snap too. So when the sensory system is overloaded, the brain moves from thinking to survival. And that means less access to reasoning, language, and emotional control. So if a student starts melting down after lunch or group work, it's not defiance, it's a body saying, I'm overwhelmed. So let's talk about noise, because noise is one of the biggest environmental triggers in classrooms. For neurotypical brains, background sounds fade into the background, but for neurodivergent brains, they stack up like layers of chaos. So think pencil sharpening, chairs scraping, echoey gym halls, fire alarms, other students' voices, even you talking while the smartboard hums. To us, it's a normal classroom, but to a hypersensitive student, it's a full-on sensory assault. So here's some noise regulation tips. I always recommend to soften the sound. Add rugs, curtains, felt pads under chairs to absorb the noise. Offer noise control tools, so ear defenders, headphones, or quiet corners. Create quiet zones, so designate an area of the classroom as low noise. Preview loud events. Let students know when a drill, assembly, or video is coming. Lower your own volume. Use calm, consistent tones, not over-exaggerated teacher voice, because when sounds feel predictable, you're going to see their behaviour stabilise. All right, now let's talk about light, because light is actually one of the most overlooked classroom triggers, especially fluorescent lights. Fluorescents flicker. You might not notice, but sensitive eyes do, and that flicker can cause headaches, fatigue, and sensory distress. Some students can't verbalize that the light is hurting them, so they might show it instead by covering their eyes, hiding under tables, putting their hood up, staring at the floor, refusing to work at certain desks. If that all sounds familiar, here are some lighting fixes that will help. So I always recommend to use natural light whenever possible. Add a lamp light or warm bulbs to soften the glare. Turn off half of the overhead lights if your school allows. Cover bright tubes with filters or paper shades, and let students wear hats or tinted glasses if it helps. Sometimes you'll be shocked how much calmer a student becomes just from dimming the lights. And if you've ever walked into a candlelit yoga studio and instantly felt your shoulders drop, that is the power of sensory lighting. All right, next up, let's talk about movement. So here's the thing. Students aren't misbehaving when they move. They're regulating, because movement is the body's natural way to release sensory energy. But in most classrooms, movement gets labeled as distraction, when really it's just communication. Some students need to move to stay focused, and others need to move to calm down, and some need stillness but don't know how to find it yet. So there are some ways that you can support movement safely in your classroom. One is to offer fidgets or chew tools for some subtle movement. You can offer flexible seating, so think wobble stools, floor cushions, yoga balls. You can incorporate movement breaks, touch the wall and come back, do 10 jumping jacks, or a short walk to deliver something. I have tons of movement breaks that I love to use with my students in all types of themes, and I'll link them in the show notes for you if you want to try those as well. Add movement into tasks. So think of stand-in stations, write the room, sorting across tables, and then teach self-awareness. Let's check. Does your body feel wiggly or calm? Movement is not the enemy of learning. It's often the gateway to it. So now we're going to look about how you can audit your classroom for some sensory safety. So let's do a little sensory checkup together. Grab a notebook. Take a walk around your classroom. This works best when students aren't there, so you can really notice the space. Let's start with noise. What can you hear right now? Is there an echo, a hum, a background noise you've tuned out? Are there sudden sounds that might startle students? Okay, next is a light audit. Are there bright spots, glare, or flickering bulbs? Is there natural light available or too much light? Could you lower the brightness during calm work times? Next is movement. Can students move safely when they need to? Is there a calm area for regulation? Are chairs, tables, and pathways spaced comfortably? Now imagine walking through your room as your most sensitive student. What might they experience that you have stopped noticing? Because that is the heart of a sensory audit, seeing the classroom through your students' nervous systems. And now we're going to look at those small changes because they have a huge impact. You don't need a fancy budget to make a sensory safe classroom. This is one of the biggest myths I've ever come across because sometimes the smallest tweaks make the biggest difference. A soft rug under the table for bare feet. Post on social media, ask if anyone's giving them away, go to thrift stores, put together a GoFundMe page or set up an Amazon donation list. Even ask other colleagues if anyone has an old rug that they're getting rid of because they have a new one maybe. Calm instrumental background music during transitions. You can use a Tony's if you have one. We love those and think they're very calming. I'll link in the show notes to those. Or even just putting on YouTube some calming music. Swapping harsh white paper displays for more muted tones. Turning off visual clutter like blinking timers or animated slides. Adding scent-free policies or swapping sprays for natural cleaners. Each change tells your students, you belong here, your body is safe here. And that message is what transforms behaviour more than any chart ever could. So how to respond to overstimulation in the moment. Even with the best setup, overload will still happen sometimes. And when it does, your job isn't to fix it, it's to regulate first and teach later. So I want you to try and lower your voice, turn off lights and sound sources, offer movement or deep pressure, think weighted blankets, pushing on a wall, reduce verbal language, use visuals or short phrases, providing time and space to decompress. Once the student's nervous system resets, then you can talk or reintroduce tasks. So calm first, teach second. And then you're going to want to involve your students in creating their sensory space. So one of my favorite strategies is to ask students what helps them feel calm. And you might be surprised by their insight. Over the years, I've had them say that they like to sit near the window, or they need to face the door, or certain noises make their head hurt. Even young or non-verbal students can show you what feels best through pictures, gestures, or choice boards. And when they help to design the environment, they're going to feel a sense of ownership. And then that ownership often reduces those very behaviors that we're here trying to manage. So next time you see a meltdown, a shutdown, a refusal, I want you to pause before reacting and ask yourself, could this be sensory? You might find that this behavior is just a body trying to protect itself. And by adjusting the noise, the light, or the movement, you can make that body feel safe enough to learn again. Your classroom doesn't have to be silent or sterile. It just has to be sensory aware. When you design with the nervous system in mind, behavior management becomes less about control and more about compassion, because a regulated body leads to a regulated mind, and a regulated classroom, that's where the real learning happens. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you found this episode helpful, and I'll speak to you again soon.